Part 4. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 31. Where did this picture come from? Everyone was looking at Luo Ming and Hongxian. Hongxian said word by word, I would like to inform the Holy Master and fellow practitioners that this picture was created by a reclusive peerless master. He is the one who used a great sun path map to kill a generation of Luo demon lord a few days ago. Hearing this, everyone in the hall took a deep breath. Suppress the existence of the demon lord. No wonder, the existence beyond the supreme, only that senior can have such a handwriting. He can actually draw this picture of dragons gathering in thousands of mountains. I'm afraid we underestimated the senior before. Everyone spoke one after another. The face of the Supreme Ling Chao became more solemn and he said, looking at it now, there is a big secret hidden in the Kangli mountain range. If the Supreme One enters it, he will either escape death and escape on the immortal road, or there will be only a dead end with no way out. That senior was actually able to draw the whole picture. Could it be that he actually walked out of the Kangli mountains? He asked word by word, is this senior an immortal? Is he a fairy? Everyone looked even more complicated. Looking at the entire Xiantian realm, even if it takes 1,000 years, it is difficult for an immortal to appear. Moreover, once you become an immortal, you can enter the immortal realm and will not remain in the world for a long time. Therefore, many immortals can only quickly leave the inheritance of the Holy Land and then leave. Therefore, it can be said that today's Xiantian realm is originally the Supreme One. If an immortal really appears, then no matter who it is, they must pay attention. This is very likely to be a major event that affects the entire Xiantian realm. Hearing this, Hongxian and Luo Ming both had a look of self-mockery on their faces. At first, we thought the senior should be an immortal. Luo Ming spoke and said, but in fact, this senior must be stronger than an immortal. Because, even the messenger of the evil god, the supreme demon general, when the burning demon soul burst out with immortal level power, the two of them joined forces and couldn't even break into the cave of that senior. Just that senior's cave has the power to kill immortals. Hiss. Everyone in the hall took a breath of air in response. Existence beyond the immortals. Isn't this terrible? It's hard to imagine, what exactly is the origin of this? Beyond the immortals, when did such a being appear in our Xiantian realm? Is it one of the legendary immortals who have always remained in the mortal world? Everyone is confused. Hongxian shook his head and said, this senior is most likely a strong man in the immortal realm. Because, he planted a peach tree. There is a peach tree planted. As soon as these words came out, everyone's faces were so shocked that they were almost numb. Peach tree. That's an immortal species, it can only be seen in the immortal realm. Now, someone actually planted it in the mortal world? It seems that this is really a powerful immortal from the lower realm. Ling Chao Supreme looked extremely solemn and said, only in this way can this painting be explained. Supreme Yuanyang nodded and said, looking at it from this point of view, this immortal is probably plotting against the entire Kangli mountain range. He gave the Tao map, what exactly did he want to do? Everyone is speculating. Two holy masters, fellow disciples. At this time, Luo Ming continued to speak, saying, from my point of view, this senior really has a plan. Since he gave the Dao map of the Kangli mountains, it must be convenient for us to enter it. This also means that a major change in the Kangli mountain range is very likely to come. Listening to Luo Ming's words, everyone also looked stern. This may be the only explanation. At this moment, outside Taiyan Holy Land, a rainbow light that was close to the Supreme approached quickly and finally stopped. The person who came was an old man. He spoke loudly. Report to the Holy Lord quickly, Kangli Mountains, the earth is cracked, the mountains are collapsing, there are many strange phenomena, and something undetectable has been born. This is a Yazun level figure from Taiyan Holy Land. He has been paying attention to the Kangli mountain range. Now that he has received the news, he came to report it as quickly as possible. The sound shook the entire Taiyan Holy Land. In the ancient bronze palace, the 8 supreme beings who were having secret discussions all changed their expressions when they heard this. They all looked at Luo Ming, and the expressions in their eyes were complicated and difficult to understand for a moment. It was said that something had really happened in the Kangli Mountains. It seems that everything was indeed planned by that senior. We just got the Tau map, and the earth cracked in the Kangli Mountains, and something was born. There was some disbelief in the eyes of Ling Chao Supreme. This calculation was too accurate. What kind of existence is it? Hurry up and put away the Dao map. We have to open the big formation. Yuan Yang Supreme reminded. Now, a change has occurred, and the 2 holy places cannot sit idly by. Supreme Luo Ming quickly put away the 10,000 mountains gathering dragons picture. Holy Lord, what should we do now? The Supreme Being asked. The Kangli mountain range is related to the entire Xiantian realm. We in the Southern Territory are the first to bear the brunt and have no shirking responsibility. Supreme Yuan Yang spoke solemnly and said, originally, if we want to deal with all this, with the current strength of our 2 holy places, I am afraid that it is a bit difficult, but now, since there is an immortal strategizing, then we may have a chance. Holy Lord, how are you sure that the senior from the immortal realm has good intentions and does not simply want to take advantage of us? You Supreme couldn't help but speak. Supreme Yuan Yang smiled self-deprecatingly and said, 2 points. The first point is that for the powerful people who think that they are above the immortals in the immortal realm, even if we are all supreme, I am afraid that we are nothing more than ants and have no use value. Secondly, facing the changes in the Kangli Mountains, we have no choice but to follow the senior's plan. Besides, I think the senior must have good intentions. Otherwise, he would not have given the tea of enlightenment that even immortals are hard to find to continue the broken path to supreme status for Hongxian and Luo Ming. He glanced at Luo Ming and the 2 and said, so, I believe the senior. Everyone nodded. Luo Ming and Hongxian nodded, with admiration in their eyes, and said, that senior is extraordinary and far from evil. He is worthy of trust. After just one meeting, they were already impressed by the senior's demeanor. Okay, if that's the case, let's take action. Ling Chao Supreme finally spoke, saying, we immediately organize our manpower to go to the Kangli Mountains to investigate, and at the same time, send a message to the Zhongzhou, northern Xinjiang, Donghuang, and western desert regions. This matter is huge and cannot be stopped by us in the Southern Territory alone. Everyone nodded solemnly. In addition, we should also contact our ancestors in the immortal realm. This matter is too big, especially since it involves existences above the immortal realm. Hearing this, everyone looked even more stern. That day, the Southern Territory was shocked. A huge earthquake occurred in the Kangli Mountains, the earth cracked, and the mountains collapsed. Countless demonic birds and spiritual beasts fled from it, once again impacting the surrounding countries. And above the Kangli Mountains, there were even more strange phenomena. There were tens of millions of dark clouds across the sky, and countless demonic shadows were shouting. The entire Southern Territory was in a state of shock. A complete sensation. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 32. Kangli Mountains. Overnight, it was as if the world had changed here. At a glance, countless mountains collapsed, and cracks appeared in the earth. It was very scary and kept extending outwards. Dark clouds shrouded the sky above the cracked earth, and from time to time, shocking roars of beasts could be heard. It seemed to have turned into a land of Shura. And at this moment, the entire southern region, countless strong men are advancing rapidly towards the Kangli mountain range. The news that happened there touched everyone's heart. Not only that, there are also many ancient teleportation arrays opened. Those ancient teleportation arrays are left behind by each other among the major holy lands. When encountering a situation that affects the survival of the entire Xiantian realm, they will be activated. Many Holy Land families will come to support through the teleportation arrays. And at this moment, Li Fan, who had slept soundly all night, woke up. After rubbing Xiaoking's arms, Li Fan smiled, stood up and stretched. On the table, there was money given by Luo Ming and Hong Xian. I haven't seen how much they paid yet. Li Fan stepped forward, ready to open it. It's heavy to hold, no matter what, it won't be less. However, when he opened it, he was suddenly surprised. In the two brocade boxes, there are actually crystal clear stones. There seems to be white mist on the rocks. Li Fan was stunned. This was not gold or jewelry. Is this the legendary spirit stone? Li Fan suddenly realized it. Luo Ming and Hong Xian are most likely cultivators. And they don't use so-called gold and silver, spiritual stones are their money. So, they gave themselves spiritual stones. Thinking of this, Li Fan also showed a happy smile. Even if he is immortal, he understands that spiritual stones are very precious. It is very important for practitioners. And these spiritual stones should be the lowest grade low-grade spiritual stones. Low-grade spiritual stones are enough. At this moment, Bai Xiaoqing also jumped on the table. She raised her eyes and glanced at the low-grade spiritual stone in the box, and she was instantly shocked. Meow meow, so many fairy stones. This is too generous. Even if I am from the White Tiger royal family, it is rare for me to see so many fairy stones. That is prepared for immortals. In the entire Xiantian realm, only some great holy places have such things. What, you like these stones too? Li Fan touched Bai Xiaoking's head, smiled, and then closed the brocade box. Put it away first and use it later when you can practice. When he walked out of the small courtyard, he saw Nanfeng and Ziling waiting outside the door. Master, we want to get some water to wash our faces, but... Nanfeng spoke with some anxiety. They went to fetch water just now, but they found that it was a holy spring. As soon as they got close to the mouth of the well, they didn't dare to get close. It was too sacred. So, they don't know where to go to get water. Hearing this, Li Fan smiled and said, I'll do it. The well was dug a bit deep, and it was really not good for two delicate girls. He led the two of them to the spring, put down the bucket calmly, and filled the bucket directly. Heat it before washing it. I've already chopped the firewood over there. Li Fan pointed to the firewood pile on one side. However, Xiling and Nanfeng were stunned. They were all shocked. Is this holy spring used by the senior to wash his face? Sky. It's too luxurious. Moreover, the firewood was made of black firewood. What kind of family background is this? Ziling was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted and said excitedly, I obey, master. She ran back and forth carrying water. Sister, come on, my God, wash your face with holy spring water. I have never had such a luxury. It must be very beautiful. She said, quickly lighting the fire. The water was hot, and the two of them washed their faces with the water. The moment the hot holy spring water touched their skin, the two of them became more and more radiant, like gelatin. This holy spring water, I almost want to drink it. Ziling's eyes widened. Just by washing her face, she felt as if the skin and bones on her face had been reborn. If I could take a sip, I would probably have a breakthrough on the spot, right? Don't embarrass the teacher. Nanfeng took a deep breath and said, Ziling, we have to forget the poor life we lived in the Holy Land, and we have to get used to everything here. As she said this, she found it difficult to accept it. After all, they both came from the Holy Land. Compared with this place, they were as poor as beggars. "Have you finished washing your face?" Li Fan came over and said with a smile, "Pour the water into the vegetable field, don't waste it, and then come over for breakfast." After hearing Li Fan's words, they immediately walked to the small vegetable garden with water in hand, but the moment they saw the vegetable field, they were shocked again. Senior said, "This is a vegetable field? This is the worst, it's all holy medicine." Zi Ling was stunned. In the vegetable field, cabbages, green vegetables, radishes, etc. are growing beautifully. However, Nanfeng and Zi Ling could tell that those Chinese cabbages, green vegetables, etc. were all accompanied by Taoist rhymes and contained the terrifying Holy Spirit energy. This is clearly a medicinal garden, and the plants planted there are all unimaginably sacred things. No wonder we need to use the holy spring to water it. Nanfeng had a complicated expression on his face and poured the water from the basin into the vegetable patch. After the two of them finished everything, they returned to the stone table. Li Fan had already prepared breakfast. "Those native chickens haven't been laying eggs very frequently in the past 2 days, so I can only eat vegetable porridge first. There are no eggs, so I'll make do with some." Li Fan smiled and handed the chopsticks to the two of them. The two of them picked up the bowls and felt the fragrant vegetable porridge in the bowls. "That's the breath of the holy medicine. Sister, I'm not dreaming." Zi Ling looked at Nanfeng with some trembling. "This is a holy medicine, even a leaf or a rhizome will be treasured in the Sanju Holy Land. Even if it is to be used, it will be cherished and used together with other medicines to make a holy elixir. But here, it's just breakfast. This is too scary." Nanfeng was holding the bowl, and he felt a little ridiculous, something that even the Holy Land couldn't ask for. "Eat it quickly, it won't taste good when it's cold." Li Fan served a bowl to Xiaobai, and then started eating it himself. "Meow meow, I must be dumbfounded. No matter what holy land or aristocratic family, they all lead a beggar-like life in front of their master." Bai Xiaoqing held her bowl with her little paws and began to eat. Nanfeng and Zi Ling looked at each other, and it was even more incredible that even pets could take the holy medicine. They simply felt that the life they had lived before was no longer life-saving. Humans are worse than cats. After some psychological struggle, the two finally accepted the reality that they were about to transition from a life of beggars to a life of luxury. Then, they started eating porridge. The sweet porridge melts in your mouth. Then, the spiritual energy exploded. The holy aura washes over the whole body. Boom! The auras of the two of them skyrocketed at this moment. Nanfeng went directly from breakthrough to the 8th level of distraction. Zi Ling also broke through to the 7th level of distraction. After finishing a bowl of porridge, the two sisters were instantly happy. "Master, I want another bowl." Zi Ling stretched out the bowl and looked at Li Fan blankly. "Master, I want another bowl too." Nanfeng couldn't bear to be reserved at this moment, this was simply an invincible opportunity. Bai Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment. Are these two sisters so shameless? She couldn't help but rub her head against Li Fan. Meow meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 33. The breakfast is not finished until all the porridge in the pot is eaten. Li Fan smiled. The two little girls, Nanfeng and Zi Ling, looked delicate and ladylike. Unexpectedly, they were also foodies. Even Xiaobai was led astray by them and actually ate 2 bowls of porridge today. He suddenly became a little worried, wouldn't Xiaobai turn into a big fat cat? After dinner, he made a pot of tea, took it out, and sat on the stone chair, very leisurely. He grabbed some corn kernels in his hand and sprinkled a little on the chickens from time to time. Those chickens circled around the corn kernels. Sister, why do I feel that these native chickens are a bit strange? Ling looked at those native chickens, her big eyes a little dizzy. That native chicken is obviously not an ordinary species, but just looking at it makes people feel oppressive. I don't know, but what the teacher feeds is definitely not an ordinary species. It is most likely some kind of mythical beast, right? Haven't you noticed that what the teacher feeds the chickens are all holy medicine? Nanfan spoke with a complicated expression. It's really annoying to compare people to each other. When they were in the Holy Land, they were considered the favored ones of heaven, and they still had a sense of superiority. After all, they could get better resources within the sect. Compared with those ordinary forces, they are simply superior and difficult to reach. But now, Senior Lee's random cat and a group of local chickens eat better than the Supremes in their holy land. If word spreads, I don't know how many Supreme beings will be angry to death, right? However, she felt excited when she thought that she and Ling had actually become the disciples of the senior and had gained such a great fate. Now that you've eaten, it's time to practice. Ling, your task today is to draw this egg. Li Fan took out an egg as big as a fist from the chicken coop and handed it to Ling. Ling took the egg but was in a daze. Senior Li, do you call this an egg? Nanfeng was shocked and murmured, this egg contains infinite fire spiritual power, like a dormant volcano, and there is a faint fire-colored phoenix pattern on the egg shell. What kind of egg is this? I feel like what I am holding in my hands is a supreme being. Ling felt like she was about to cry. What kind of ferocious beast's egg was this? It hadn't even hatched yet, but it was already frightening to death. The key is that when eating porridge before, Senior Li seemed to say that the local chickens have not been laying eggs diligently recently and there are no eggs to eat, so he can only eat vegetable porridge. Senior Li often eats eggs like this. What kind of horrible creatures did he raise as laying hens? What? Don't you want to? Li Fan saw Ling in a daze, but he frowned and said, the most important thing in painting is basic skills, and basic skills are actually to allow you to see the essence through phenomena. Being a simple egg can enable you to paint thousands of times with repeated efforts thousands of times, then you should be able to truly understand the object you want to draw. At that time, the basic skills will be considered completed. He taught patiently that this girl Ling also had some aura. Since she accepted someone as her disciple, she must be responsible for her. Hearing this, Ling nodded quickly and said, Ling understands. She immediately placed rice paper, pen, and ink on the stone table on one side, placed the local egg in front of her eyes, and began to observe and paint. Nanfan, pour tea for me, and then play a song. Li Fan sat and spoke comfortably. Nanfeng immediately stepped forward and respectfully poured a cup of tea for Li Fan. The dense aroma of the tea calmed her down instantly. Respectfully bringing the tea to Li Fan's hand, she walked aside and started playing. In the small courtyard, under the peach tree, Li Fan leisurely drank tea. In my ears, there is music played by a beautiful lady. In front of me, there is a girl painting. Li Fan suddenly felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Even a strong cultivator might not be as happy as himself, right? After a long time, the south wind stopped singing, and Ling also filled a piece of rice paper with eggs. Li Fan gave the two of them a few pointers, and both of them were enlightened and gained more. Dong dong dong. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Xiao Li, open the door quickly, I'm bringing you meat. Hearing this, Li Fan immediately stood up and opened the door. But what he saw in front of the door was Aunt Zhang, carrying the hind legs of an unknown animal. What's this? Li Fan was a little confused. Aunt Zhang smiled and said, Xiao Li, let me tell you, there was an earthquake last night. You don't know, many mountains have collapsed. When I woke up, everything was turned upside down. Our small mountain village was motionless. Do you think it's magical? Many birds and animals in the mountains died beside the village. Those birds and animals are all top quality, and the meat is delicious. Unfortunately, the skin and flesh are thick, and everyone's steel knives were broken. Fortunately, you gave me a kitchen knife before, and the kitchen knife worked. I cut everything off. Yes, I'll send you a note and come back. Hearing this, Li Fan was stunned. Earth, was there an earthquake? Zai Ling and Nanfeng behind him looked even more shocked. Earthquake? Is it the Kangli mountain range? Is there any big movement among them? Moreover, the leg Aunt Zhang is holding, how does it look a bit like the leg of the legendary golden beast? Thank you, Aunt Zhang. Since there is an earthquake, I have to go out and take a look. Li Fan took the meat from Aunt Zhang and hung it on the wall next to him. He never liked eating those game meats, but they could be used to feed cats. Thinking of this, he touched Xiaobai and said, "You will have a good meal tonight." Bai Xiaoqing was looking at the leg in a daze, but when she heard Li Fan's words, she was instantly excited. Meow, 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 is this true? Others might not recognize it, but she, Bai Xiaoqing, knew very well that those legs were the hind legs of the legendary golden beast. The golden beast is said to have a trace of Kylin blood in its body. It can be called a mythical beast. And the flesh and blood of such a mythical beast, if she could get it, would be of great use to her. She couldn't help but rub her head against Li Fan. Let's go out and take a look. Li Fan immediately walked out of the small courtyard and headed towards the place where Aunt Zhang said the corpses of animals were lying. And at this moment, on the outskirts of the Kangli Mountains, the airship disappeared and appeared, and it was unknown how many powerful forces had arrived. The breath of the Supreme appears in the air from time to time. On top of one of the spaceships, an old man with a flute on his back stared ahead. He was thinking. Senior brother Tai Ming, the Kangli mountain range has really opened up, and the sacred objects left by our ancestors will inevitably come out. Next to him, an old man with a paintbrush on his waist walked over, with a hint of fanaticism in his eyes. But don't forget that only young people can obtain the sacred objects left by our ancestors. Tai Ming spoke in a deep voice. You and I are the best disciples in the Holy Land. Who else can compare with them? The old man with the paintbrush smiled disdainfully. Have you forgotten that Mologui's 2 apprentices came here a few days ago? Although Mologui passed away, his 2 apprentices are not fuel-efficient lamps. Yu Qin said Huadao is a leading figure among the young generation in the Holy Land. Tai Ming said. What kind of trouble can 2 minor cultivators in the distraction stage cause when they no longer have the protection of the Supreme Being? The old man holding the paintbrush sneered, waved back and said, Ao Ming, Zhu Xian, you 2 lead people to find Nanfeng and Zai Ling. It's time to see their master. Behind the spacecraft, a man and a woman immediately nodded respectfully and said, Yes, master. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xian. Chapter 34. Small Village. Li Fan walked to the entrance of the village with Zai Ling and Nanfeng. When he reached the entrance of the village, Li Fan looked in the direction of the mountains and was a little stunned. Nanfeng and Zai Ling looked at the scene in front of them and were completely dumbfounded. At a glance, countless mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, as if a terrible disaster had occurred. The mountains and forests collapsed, rocks were scattered everywhere, and there was a faint smell of blood. It was obvious that this was a catastrophe, and countless creatures in it were all dead. God, what happened? Did the gods send down punishment? Otherwise, how could there be such power? Nanfeng murmured. It's terrible. Fortunately, we are in a small mountain village. Otherwise, we might all die when the disaster occurs. Zai Ling's big eyes were full of fear. At this moment, they suddenly understood why they met Li Fan that day and why Li Fan brought them back here. This was a complete calculation that this disaster was about to happen, and he took action to save their lives. Sister, why was it that we didn't feel anything about such a big disaster last night? At the same time, Zai Ling was also full of doubts. Nanfeng looked at Li Fan with a complicated expression and said, as long as the teacher is here, even if it is a natural disaster, we will not dare to go near where he is. Didn't you notice? Thousands of miles away, only this small mountain village still maintains its original appearance. It is as if nothing happened. The villagers slept soundly all night and have no idea what is happening in the outside world. Teacher, just by living here, you can prevent natural disasters from invading. Hearing this, Zai Ling's little mouth also opened wide. They looked at Li Fan with such admiration. This is an unparalleled master. He is extremely calm and does not need to do anything at all, but he cannot get close to any disaster. It is conceivable that last night, these rare beasts must have felt that this was the only pure land, so they wanted to break in and take refuge. However, without Senior Li's permission, these ferocious beasts, which were so terrifying that even the supreme beings would be terrified, could not even step foot into the village and were killed. Nanfan looked at the corpses of various animals piled up a few hundred meters away from the village. The rare and exotic animals are piled up like a mountain, which is even more shocking at a glance. There is a tortoise as big as a house. Its carapace is extremely hard and there are various patterns on its back. There are two giant cyan birds with wings that can accommodate dozens of people standing, and each feather is like an iron fan. There are also several four-legged beasts as big as elephants, and their skins are as thick as a wall. All kinds of spiritual beasts that have never been seen before are now dead around them. It was as if, driven by some kind of terrifying existence, they rushed towards the mountain village, but died outside the mountain village. These beasts are really rare to see. They must be delicious. What the hell, you can't even cut this meat with a knife. I guess I can't even cook it, right? Several of our steel knives were broken. Fortunately, Xiao Li made some kitchen knives, which are really useful. The villagers were surrounding the ferocious beasts and cutting them. For the villagers, hunting is a way to obtain survival materials. Now that so many animal carcasses have died here due to the earthquake, it is really a gift from God. Even those that look inedible can be cut off and set aside. Everyone, come on, cut off all these good meats and dry them into bacon. It will be enough for us to eat until next year. Someone was shouting loudly. It's so rough. The mammoth beast, the big green rock, the 3UN turtle, these are all sub-level spiritual beasts. Now, they actually want to cut them and dry them for bacon. Hearing this shouting, Zai Ling couldn't believe it. Any one of these ferocious beasts that appears in the outside world can cause a bloody storm. Unless the Supreme takes action, they are invincible. But, it turned into food for a group of mountain people? If you tell me this, who will believe it? All this is because of the teacher. Nanfan spoke solemnly. Both of them looked deeply at Li Fan's back. However, Li Fan was troubled at this moment. Damn, why is there an earthquake? Fortunately, the small mountain village where I live has avoided disaster. God bless you. However, looking at the situation, if there is another aftershock or something, the place where I am may not be able to escape. It would be safer to move. However, it was the system's task for my mother to live here in the first place. This is a scam. Xiao Li, you are well informed. What do you think is going on? Nothing will happen here, right? An old man in the village asked Li Fan. After all, the mountain people were still a little scared when they saw the scene outside. Li Fan also thought about it, then shook his head and said, "Don't worry, This place is safe. Since the system allows you to live here, it certainly won't let you die here, right? Otherwise, why are you having fun? So Li Fan believes that there is no problem here. After everyone heard this, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Li Fan was still very prestigious among them. Teacher is really calm. Nanfan and the two were even more impressed. Right now, in the sky, suddenly a huge spaceship quickly approached. According to the soul-inducing lamp, Nanfan and Xiling are nearby. On the spaceship, Aoming and Zhu Xian looked at the two lamps that flickered on and off and spoke excitedly. Behind them, there were several old men with terrifying auras. Nanfan, Xiling, come out and die. They immediately roared downwards. At the same time, the spacecraft also quickly approached downwards. Aoming's roar reached the small mountain village below. Countless mountain people were surprised when they saw a spaceship landing. Flying ship? Is this a cultivator? God, I can't mess with you. It's over, why did the cultivator come to us? The villagers were all a little panicked. Ziling and Nanfeng's expressions changed even more. It's Aoming and the others. Nanfeng spoke in a low voice. What's going on? Li Fan also asked Nanfeng. Nanfeng immediately said, Teacher Qi, we were originally from the Sanju Holy Land. The teacher who taught us Jin Dao and Painting Dao passed away not long ago. He asked us to come to this area to look for opportunities. However, there are always people in the sect who are targeting us. Us. If they come, I'm afraid they are coming with bad intentions. Li Fan was a little confused and said, 3 absolute holy lands? What is that? Nanfeng was a little stunned. Senior Li didn't know about the 3 ultimate holy lands. However, she immediately realized that the reason why Senior Li didn't know the 3 ultimate holy lands could only be one. That is because Senior Li has not been involved in world affairs for many years, so he has no idea that there is an additional 3 ultimate holy land in the world. After all, even though the Sanju Holy Land is famous in Xiantian realm, to Senior Li, it is just an ant. She immediately said cautiously, the ancestors of our Holy Land are quite outstanding in the 3 realms of music, painting, and calligraphy, so we created the Holy Land. Everyone in the Holy Land practices these 3 realms. She simply did not dare to mention the words 3 absolute immortals. After all, in front of the senior, who would dare to call someone unparalleled? What does immortality mean? When Li Fan heard this, he understood instantly. It's just a sect composed of young literary and artistic people. And the Holy Land is so high-end, the co-authorship is almost the same as the Music Hobby Association, Calligraphy Association, and the like in Li Fan's previous life. Since it is just such an organization, Li Fan is relieved. This kind of fan organization is generally easy to talk to. Anyway, Li Fan believes that few people are more proficient in music, calligraphy, painting, etc. than him. At worst, it's okay to compete and let the opponent admit defeat. So, he immediately stepped forward and prepared to communicate with these people. However, he had just stepped forward and had not spoken yet. On the spaceship, Aoming, Zhu Xian, and a group of masters were all looking at the scene in front of them in dumbfounded shock. Then, what are those? Are they 3-dimensional turtles, mammoth beasts, big green rocks? Aoming was shocked as soon as he landed. No, the entire Kangli mountain range has collapsed. Why is it so motionless here? Zhu Xian's face was full of doubts. Behind them, an old man with grey hair looked at a peasant woman in front of him in shock. That peasant woman was chopping up the shell of a 3UN turtle with a kitchen knife. The turtle shell was neatly chopped off in response. Hiss. The old man took a breath of cold air. Even though he was so far away, he clearly felt the terrifying aura contained in that knife. Even the so-called supreme turtle's shell cannot be broken, but under that knife, it is like tofu. What exactly is this existence? Quickly, go quickly, go quickly, there is a great terror here, there is a great terror here. The old man shouted, panicked, and hurriedly mobilized the spacecraft. In an instant, the Yukong spaceship took off and flew directly into the sky, turning into a stream of light and disappearing. Li Fan, who was about to speak, was suddenly puzzled. Why did you run away? Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 35. Seeing this scene, while Li Fan was puzzled, Zai Ling and Nanfeng were also instantly surprised. Sister, what's going on? Why did Ao Ming and the others run away? Zai Ling was a little confused. Nanfeng thought for a while, glanced at Li Fan, and said, if I'm not mistaken, the one who came with them is Xiao Tianya. They are short-sighted, but Xiao Tianya is discerning. Senior Li is here. Can he not be afraid? Zai Ling suddenly understood. So that's it? So, we don't have to be afraid of them at all. As long as the teacher is here, even if the Supreme One comes, we won't be able to do anything. Zai Ling's big eyes suddenly lit up and she clenched her little fists. Nanfeng also smiled. What Zai Ling said was true, but she remembered that even Hongxian and Luo Ming, the two famous Southern Territory Supremes, had to respectfully call the teacher senior. Now that they're gone, I'll try to reason with them when they come back. Li Fan smiled at Nanfeng Xiling. The two of them were even more relieved. The Supreme Being was afraid that he was not qualified to bear Senior Li's reasonableness. Let's go back. We'd better not go out during this period. Li Fan turned and left. Too dangerous. But Bai Xiaoqing looked at the various spiritual beasts outside the mountain village, her big eyes full of longing. If the flesh and blood of so many spiritual beasts could be obtained by the clansmen, many clansmen would be greatly improved. What a pity. She meowed twice. Stop barking. I'll cut meat and feed it to you when we get back. Li Fan touched her head. Bai Xiaoqing's big eyes suddenly lit up. Meow, can you eat the golden beast? What a happy cat. Ao Ming and others fled quickly in the spaceship. Uncle Master, what's wrong? Why are we running away? Ao Ming had a look of reluctance on his face, as he had clearly found Nanfeng and the other two. As long as Xiao Tian snaps his fingers, the two of them will die immediately, and all threats will be gone. Now he actually ran away. Shut up. However, Honorable Xiao Tianya scolded angrily and said, that is a forbidden area. Where did you start? Do you want me to die? He had lingering fears. That knife, that kitchen knife that could cut the shell of a three-dimensional turtle, its terrifying power still remained in his heart. Ao Ming and Zhu Xian were both shocked. Forbidden land. Is that small mountain village so scary? Not long after, they had returned to where they came from. In the air, the two Supreme Masters Tai Ming were still observing the Kangli mountain range. Ao Ming and the others are back. The old man with the paintbrush on his waist smiled and said, I think the hidden danger has been solved. Only our descendants can get the items left by the ancestors. Tai Ming also nodded and said, that's fine. I hope they can do it more cleanly and don't let anyone find out through the door. Soon, Ao Ming and others' spaceship was approaching. Brother Qi, something big happened. Just as they got closer, Xiao Tianya turned into a ray of light and appeared in front of the two supreme beings. Seeing Xiao Tian, both of them frowned instantly. What's wrong? Did something happen on the way to kill Nanfeng and the others? Tai Ming asked. Xiao Tian nodded, his face extremely heavy, and said, Nanfeng and Zai Ling have now entered a forbidden area. That situation is too terrifying, I dare not get close. He then recounted what he saw in the small mountain village. Suddenly, the expressions of the two supreme beings changed. The Kangli mountain range has completely collapsed. At this time, there is still a piece of pure land that is not affected. So many spiritual beasts, almost supreme, actually died outside that small mountain village. What kind of kitchen knife can actually cut through the shell of a three-dimensional turtle that claims to have countless defenses? They asked one question after another. The two of them felt that Xiao Tian was confused. Is this possible? Each piece of news is more surprising than the other. It's absolutely true. That kitchen knife contains great energy. Just looking at it from a distance gives me a sense of fatal threat. If I get close, I'm afraid I will be crushed. Xiao Tian spoke with lingering fear. Tai Ming glanced at the old man with the paintbrush on his waist and said, "Brother Shi Tai, it seems that we have to go there in person." Shi Tai nodded and said, "Such a strange Pure Land actually appeared in a place like this. Maybe it has something to do with the entire Kangli Mountains. I have to pay attention. Go and see." The two supreme beings immediately headed towards the small mountain village that Xiao Tian mentioned. Ao Ming and Zhu Xian were even more surprised when they heard that the two supreme beings had personally taken action. Great, this time, no matter where Zi Ling and Nanfeng are hiding, they will definitely die. They also followed the two supreme beings to the small mountain village. Not long after, they reappeared outside the small mountain village. This time, they did not show up rashly, but hidden in the air. It's so strange that there really is such a pure land. Shi Tai spoke in surprise. The Kangli Mountains have collapsed, but this place is still safe and sound. It's really strange. Tai Ming nodded and said, "Let's sneak into this small mountain village and take a look." A group of them immediately landed from the spaceship and walked into the small mountain village through an unmanned entrance. "I don't feel anything strange at all, it looks so ordinary." Tai Ming looked around. At this moment, a middle-aged man carrying a piece of meat walked over. "That's mammoth meat." Shi Tai was instantly shocked. Several people's eyes widened. What Xiao Tian said is true. Do the mountain people here really regard those venerable level spiritual beasts as prey? How terrible! May I ask this brother, have you ever seen two girls in the village? Shi Tai's eyes flashed, and he immediately stepped forward and said, "One of them likes to play the piano, and the other likes to draw." The middle-aged man carrying the meat smiled and said, "Oh, you are talking about the two apprentices that Xiao Li has accepted? I have seen them. Where are they with Xiao Li?" Hearing this, Shi Tai and Tai Ming were both surprised. Apprentice. Zi Ling and Nanfeng became disciples of others. What's happening here? Yes, we are just looking for them. May I ask where they are now? Shi Tai continued to speak. The middle-aged man immediately told them the location of Li Fan's yard. When the middle-aged man walked away, everyone looked cold. These two traitors. There was a hint of coldness in their eyes. Haha, this is the best. They actually dare to become a disciple privately. Do they still have the sect in their eyes? In this case, we will kill them directly and the sect master will not say anything. Shi Tai sneered, waved his hand and said, "Let's go, I want to see who he is, who dares to take in those two traitors from Nanfan and go against our three ultimate holy land." They immediately headed towards the path mentioned by the middle-aged man. And at this moment, Li Fan and others have returned to the small courtyard. First, he mixed the golden beast's meat with green peppers from the vegetable patch, stir-fried a small plate, and had lunch with everyone. Needless to say, Zi Ling and Nanfeng used the holy medicine and the dishes stir-fried with the venerable level meat, which made their spiritual energy erupt and their cultivation levels improved. Bai Xiaoqing turned into a glutton and ate until her stomach was bulging. Li Fan couldn't help but hug Xiaobai, rub her belly, and said, "You are too greedy." Meow meow, Bai Xiaoqing was rubbing her belly by Li Fan, but there was a shy look in her big eyes. Ouch, how can you touch someone's breasts? But, he is so gentle. I don't want to move anymore. Nanfan Xiling, two rebels, come out and die. At this time, a shout suddenly came from outside the small courtyard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 36. Outside the small courtyard, the sudden sound made Ziling and Nanfeng suddenly change their expressions. No. It's Elder Shitai's voice. Nanfeng's words were serious. She really didn't expect that in order to kill them, even the Supreme Lord would personally go out. If Senior Li hadn't been here, I'm afraid they could have simply waited to die. Ziling was also a little nervous and looked at Li Fan and said, "Teacher, they are here to catch us." Li Fan was also a little puzzled. Why is this group of enthusiasts so vicious? It's easy to die or live. It doesn't matter, I'll talk to them some reason. But Li Fan was still relatively calm and asked, "What do these people here study?" Nanfeng said, "Elder Shitai is proficient in calligraphy. Elder Tai Ming should be here with him. Elder Tai Ming is proficient in music. His musical instrument is a flute." Li Fan smiled slightly when he heard this. Temperament. Calligraphy. This really hit his hand. "I understand, please wait a moment." He then entered the study. He took out pen, ink, paper, inkstone, etc. from the study room, and walked out holding a flute. He studied the ink and then picked up the pen. The pen is ancient and simple. I don't know how many years it has been in the world. On the pen holder, there are vaguely two ancient characters Emperor G. The brush strokes instantly landed on the rice paper. Silverhook iron painting. Next to them, Nanfeng and Ziling's expressions suddenly changed. They clearly felt that at this moment, the Dao rhyme was surging in the entire small courtyard, and that one stroke seemed to affect the Dao. Why do I feel that what the teacher is holding in his hand is not a pen at all, but a unique sword? Ziling was in a daze. When I write the pen, the avenue is harmonious. What kind of state is this? Nanfeng also murmured. After a long time. Only then did Li Fan put pen to paper. On the snow-white rice paper, there are already 4 words. Wuorxianting. Unparalleled leisure court. Every word is extremely delicate and cannot be changed at all. Li Fan said, "Ziling, please take this calligraphy and frame it on the courtyard gate. It's been so long, and he hasn't given his courtyard a name yet. Now, just use this name, just right, it can also make those vicious calligraphy enthusiasts out there quit. As long as they understand that now Ziling and the two have become famous teachers and are superior to them in calligraphy, music, etc., they will naturally leave, right?" Upon hearing this, Ziling hurried forward and held up the calligraphy. Wuorxianting. She glanced at the words and suddenly felt that she was almost overwhelmed by the Taoist charm in them. She didn't dare to look at it any longer, so she immediately framed the calligraphy, then took a deep breath and walked outside. And at this moment, outside the courtyard, Tai Ming, Shitai and others all looked at the small courtyard in front of them with surprise and uncertainty. Why do I feel that this small courtyard is a bit strange? Although it looks calm and ordinary, it gives me a very dangerous feeling. Tai Ming spoke with a hint of fear in his eyes. It was precisely because they felt how extraordinary this small courtyard was that they didn't dare to break in for a while. No matter what great things can be found in a mere small mountain village? We are all supreme beings, invincible in the Xiantian realm. Shitai was very confident. He held the pen on his waist in his hand and was ready to step forward. However, at this moment, the door of the small courtyard was suddenly opened. Ziling was seen walking out of the door. Everyone was surprised when they saw her. This traitor is indeed here. You're really looking for death, you still dare to show up. Ao Ming and Zhu Xian both spoke gloomily. Haha, Ziling, you have finally come out. Where is Nanfan? I heard that you two actually dared to go out and accept someone else as your teacher. Today, I will clear the door for your master. Shi Tai stepped forward and spoke gloomily. There was a flash of fear in Ziling's big eyes, but then she said, Sister Nanfan and I have become Senior Li's disciples, you must not be presumptuous. After saying that, she immediately put the framed calligraphy in her hand and it lit up. Boom! In an instant, Shi Tai's whole body was shaken, as if he had been struck by lightning, and his whole body was staring straight ahead. Wuorxianting. He murmured, those 4 words made him unable to extricate himself. He clearly felt a great terror. Every transaction is a cash withdrawal from the avenue. Every stroke is paved with rules. Unique, meaning supreme, unique. The leisurely garden is full of carefreeness and detachment from the world. What a courage! Was this written by the invincible? How can this be? As a strong man who has proven his supremacy through calligraphy, Shi Tai can naturally feel the ocean-like avenue and the mystery as vast as the universe. He was trembling and excited. Suddenly, his legs plopped down and he knelt on the ground. This is the suppression of the invincible way, the ants worship when facing the giant dragon. He saw countless avenues flowing, and saw the derivation and demise of the laws of heaven and earth. Blood suddenly flowed down from Shi Tai's eyes. No. Tai Ming instantly noticed something. He was not a calligrapher, so he was not frightened by the same horror as Shi Tai. He hurriedly grabbed Shi Tai's shoulders, grabbed Shi Tai and hurriedly covered Shi Tai's eyes. You can't look at it anymore. If you look at it again, you'll just sit down and pass away. Tai Ming reminded anxiously. He clearly felt that Shi Tai's cultivation was fluctuating and overflowing, which was a sign of sitting. But Shi Tai laughed maniacally. He danced, cried, and laughed, and said, Haha, I have seen the ultimate in calligraphy, I have seen the ultimate way of calligraphy, haha, ha 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 ha. He suddenly turned around and ran away like a child, jumping up and down along the way. Seeing this scene, Tai Ming was shocked. He said in disbelief, he is crazy. Crazy. Ao Ming and Zhu Xian's expressions changed greatly. How is it possible that the Supreme Master of the generation, who became a Taoist with calligraphy, actually went crazy like this? Just because I read 4 words written by others. If you tell me this, no ghost will believe it. But now, it has actually happened. Then, who wrote those 4 words? Ao Ming trembled a little, and deep fear arose in his heart. Tai Ming took a deep breath and looked forward. At this moment, Ziling had hung the framed calligraphy on the courtyard door. Tai Ming didn't dare to look at those 4 words at all, but looked at Ziling and said, Ziling, what kind of existence is behind you? Even he was afraid. A piece of calligraphy can drive the Supreme Being crazy, how can you not be afraid? Ziling looked at Shi Tai's crazy retreating figure with a daze in her eyes. Is this what Senior Li said, to reason with the people in the Holy Land? This is simply too terrible. Hearing Supreme Tai Ming's question, Ziling came back to her senses, glanced at him with a complicated expression, and said, You are not qualified to know yet. After saying that, she turned around and entered the small courtyard. Stop. How can you leave? Tai Ming was anxious. He really wanted to know what kind of terrifying existence was hidden in this. Even the Supreme can drive him crazy, he thought too much at this moment. The Kangli mountain range opens. In such a strange small mountain village, there is such a terrifying existence hidden. It's scary to think about it. However, just as he took a step forward, a clear flute sound came from the small courtyard. The sound of the flute was like some kind of irresistible force. Tai Ming was immediately shaken and looked towards the small courtyard blankly. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 37. As soon as Xialing entered the small courtyard, a flute sound sounded. In the small courtyard, Li Fan held a jade flute and began to play. The jade flute made of unknown jade is crystal clear and flawless, just like the white clouds in the sky. On the jade flute, there are two different ancient characters. The clear sound of the flute kept ringing. Li Fan intended to make the other party retreat in spite of difficulties, so the tune he played was like the surging river. Nanfan's beautiful eyes were extremely shocked. She looked at Li Fan blankly and realized the sound of Li Fan's flute. The music is all figured out, and the sound of the flute can also inspire her piano sound. At this moment, she clearly felt that she was like a small boat, pushed by the endless river, constantly rising and falling, with big waves rising into the sky, and the river roaring. The great river goes to the east, the waves are gone, the romantic figures of the ages. The stormy waves hit the shore and rolled up thousands of piles of snow. The majestic artistic conception made her completely lost. In the courtyard, the fish are still and the chickens are dormant. On the peach tree, the big and red peaches are emitting a dazzling light. In the vegetable field, every vegetable leaf rises and falls with the sound of the flute. With one sound, all things sing in harmony. Outside the courtyard, Tai Ming was stunned, as if he had been taken away by some kind of existence. The iron flute in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. The ultimate sound, the ultimate sound. Tai Ming murmured, and he clearly felt that the sound of the flute was interpreting a world, in which the sea was flowing and the ocean was roaring, and he was just the most inconspicuous wave. The sound of the flute in the small courtyard suddenly changed, and the waves rose with the strong wind and fell heavily. For a moment, the world suddenly became quiet, just like the calmness of the lake after a storm. Every wave has disappeared. At this moment, Tai Ming's body suddenly disappeared. He gradually disappeared from his feet to his head, and he didn't know where he went. In place, only an iron flute was left whining in the wind. Li Fan's flute sound has stopped. No. No, master, master. Zhu Xian trembled. She looked at the scene in disbelief as if she had seen a ghost. She called out to Supreme Shiming, but there was no response at all. Brother, what happened? What exactly happened? Zhu Xian looked at Ao Ming in horror. Ao Ming's lips were dry, and his whole body was trembling slightly, and he said, Supreme Shiming has transformed into a Tao, he has transformed into a Tao. Transformed? Zhu Zindan was dumbfounded. Transformation means to completely disappear from this world. However, isn't the transformation of the Dao a situation that only occurs when the life of the Supreme One has reached the end and can no longer break through? Supreme Shiming is clearly in his prime and has a bright future. He is even known as one of the people who may become immortals in the three absolute holy lands. Now he has become a Taoist, just because of an unknown song in this small courtyard. What kind of person is hiding here? The two supreme beings of the Holy Land, one went crazy and the other became a Taoist. Ao Ming murmured, then turned around and left. No stopping. Quick, run away. He just said this and ran away. Senior brother, wait for me, wait for me. Zhu Xian was also scared and hurriedly followed. Even Tai Ming's iron flute, they didn't dare to pick it up. In the small courtyard. They should leave, right? Li Fan smiled and put away the jade flute. Nanfan was still immersed in the realm of enlightenment and couldn't extricate himself for a while. Xialing stepped forward and opened the courtyard door, only to see that Tai Ming and others had disappeared, but an iron flute was left on the scene. She was startled. What's going on? The iron flute is Tai Ming's supreme weapon. Generally speaking, when the flute is around, how can one leave the supreme weapon here? Could it be said that Tai Ming is dead? A bold idea flashed through her mind. If this is really the case, it would be terrible. From such a long distance, Senior Li could kill a supreme being invisible with just one song. However, remembering that Senior Li had driven Shi Tai crazy because of just a piece of calligraphy and had obtained the true biography of the three immortals of the past, she suddenly felt that this might not be impossible. She immediately stepped forward, picked up Shi Tai Supreme's iron flute, and then walked back to the small courtyard. Senior, they are all gone. This is the flute left by Shi Tai. She handed it to Li Fan respectfully. In her opinion, this should be Li Fan's trophy. When Li Fan heard this, he turned around and looked over. He was also quite curious, what was the difference between the flutes used by immortal cultivators. He immediately took it, took a look, and shook his head instantly. The quality is too poor and shoddy. Throw it in the trash can. He spoke directly. This is too bad. Even the things given by the system are better than this. The flute used by cultivators, or the elders in the Enthusiast Association, that's all. No wonder Nanfeng and Ziling have to run out. There is no future in following this kind of sect. Ziling and Nanfeng also had complicated expressions. This can be said that Shiming Supreme's Chenless flute is truly a supreme instrument. If it were placed in the outside world, I don't know how big a ripple it would cause, and countless people would break the competition to reveal it. However, to Senior Li, it only deserves to be thrown into the trash can. Is teacher. Xiling then threw the iron flute into the trash can nearby. Old, teacher, such a big thing has happened in the Kangli Mountains. What should we do? Then, Nanfeng asked with some anxiety. Now, she is not sure whether the great changes in the Kangli Mountains were caused by her teacher. After all, when the mountains collapsed, this small mountain village was the only one left unharmed. Obviously, all this is just because Li Fan lives here. If it weren't for Li Fan, this small mountain village would have turned into dust long ago, and the mountain residents would not have been able to escape this disaster. When Li Fan heard this, he also sighed and said, "Wait a minute dash. Don't go out during this period, it's too chaotic." He shook his head. According to his understanding of earthquakes, generally speaking there will be many aftershocks. Since this small mountain village happens to avoid the earthquake area, it is best to brave it here. Hearing this, Nanfeng and Ziling's expressions became more complicated. Even Senior Li said that chaos, what kind of big event will happen in the Kangli Mountains? And at this moment, Ao Ming and Zhu Xian ran all the way and far out of the mountain village before they finally stopped. What should we do? What should we do this time? Zhu Xian asked anxiously and horrifiedly. Two supreme beings, one went crazy and the other transformed. If this news comes back, the Sanju Holy Land may be turned upside down. No matter what, we must tell the Holy Land now. I don't believe that the Holy Land comes with the immortal weapon. Who else can protect those two bitches Ziling and Nanfeng? Ao Ming spoke with a gloomy expression and immediately crushed a jade talisman. The jade talisman connecting the three holy places. In front of the two of them, a curtain of light suddenly appeared, and in the curtain of light, there was a faint figure. "What's the matter?" A majestic voice sounded. "I am reporting to the Supreme Elder that two traitors, Nanfeng and Xiling, have left the sect and taken refuge with others. Moreover, they have caused Supreme Shiming to become a Taoist and Supreme Shi Tai has disappeared. I beg the Supreme Elder to provide immediate support and kill the rebels to avenge them." Ao Ming spoke in a deep voice. On the other side of the light curtain, the majestic figure seemed to be stunned for a moment, and then disappeared. "Senior brother, this..." Zhu Xian was a little confused. When two supreme beings are born, the sect must discuss it. Just wait. Ao Ming spoke gloomily. Now. Zhongzhou. In a paradise of heaven and earth. The mountains are majestic, the aura is extraordinary, and the disciples in this holy land are all extremely talented. Someone was painting on the top of the mountain. While painting, the wind blew up. Someone was playing by the lake. When he played, the water birds danced for him. There was also a group of sword cultivators who were respectfully watching a middle-aged man write. With one stroke of his hand, the middle-aged man's sword energy suddenly emerged. It is peaceful, and it is truly a holy place for spiritual practice. However, at this moment, the rapid and majestic bell suddenly rang, shaking the entire Sanju holy land. In an instant, the faces of cultivators everywhere changed drastically. What's going on? What is this sound? The death knell, this is the supreme death knell. What? In our Sanju holy land, a supreme being has fallen. How is this possible? What's going on? In an instant, the paper of the scholar who was painting on the mountain was torn. The strings being played by the lake suddenly broke, and a few dancing waterfowl exploded into blood mist. In the forest, a middle-aged man couldn't write the last stroke of his calligraphy, and his pen broke. For a moment, everyone in the Sanju holy land looked at the location of the main hall in shock and daze. Everyone knows, something big happened. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 38. Within the main hall of the Sanju holy land. The atmosphere was tense and heavy to the extreme. A total of 6 supreme beings were born. Many of them, even before this, were in retreat, unwilling to be disturbed by anything. But now, they have to leave the border. Because, at this time, it means that the Holy Land is facing a major crisis. Sect Master, what happened that requires us to be summoned? An old man with gray hair asked. There was even an aura of decay on his body. This is an old supreme being who has experienced countless years, and has been stuck before becoming an immortal, unable to break through. Everyone's eyes fell on a middle-aged man sitting at the head of the hall. The middle-aged man's aura was dormant, and his eyes seemed to have divine lightning. He is the current Holy Master of Sanju Holy Land, Xuanhuan Chang. The 2 Supremes, Shi Tai and Tai Ming, arrived at the southern region, Kangli Mountains, through the teleportation array a few days ago. Everyone's expressions turned pale after hearing this. Now, the 2 supreme beings, Tai Ming is dead, the soul lamp has been extinguished, and Shi Tai's soul lamp is extremely weak and will dissipate at any time. According to the news from over there, he has gone crazy. In the main hall, many supreme beings were even more shocked at this moment. One dead and one crazy, what happened to them? Is it some kind of terrifying existence? If you're so good, you need me to wait until you get out of seclusion. Everyone spoke, and the old supreme being who asked the question said, did they come into contact with the terrifying existence in the Kangli Mountains? The Kangli mountain range is well known throughout Xiantian realm as a forbidden area. If the 2 supreme beings were really killed by the terrifying existence in them, then everything would seem normal. After all, the mountain range itself can be called the graveyard of the supreme beings. However, Xuanhuan Chang shook his head and said, that's not the case, they were harmed by others. According to the news sent back by the disciples of Shi Tai and Tai Ming, they were killed by 2 traitors, Nanfeng and Ziling, in collusion with a certain being. No matter who Ziling and Nanfeng are seeking refuge with, after the other party murdered the 2 supreme beings of our holy land, they let go of the 2 supreme disciples. It is obvious that they want to demonstrate to us. This is a provocation. Xuanhuan Chang spoke coldly and said, if we don't go on a conquest in the face of such humiliation, then the prestige of our holy land will be damaged. Many supreme beings are all Yilin. So, there is only one purpose for calling you all together today. Our holy land should launch a holy war. Revenge for the 2 supreme beings. Hearing this, the expressions of many supreme beings changed. Holy war. Jihad never happens unless it is a matter of life and death. When the holy war begins, it means death or life. There is no other choice. Have things reached this point? Isn't it too early to directly launch a jihad before figuring out the whole story? The old Supreme couldn't help but speak. The other Supremes also had hesitant looks on their faces. However, at this time, Chang Sunlian Chang stood up directly. His face was cold and he said, "Everyone, don't forget that the Kangli mountain range has been opened. How many years has it been since our Sanju Holy Land has not seen an immortal?" Before setting foot on the immortal platform, the patriarch left the immortal piano and the immortal pen that contained the immortal way in the Kangli mountains. Both supreme beings have been defeated. We must use all our strength to have a chance to get them back. This is the opportunity to create another glorious life. In an instant, everyone understood. The purpose of the holy war is not at all the person who harmed the two supreme beings. It's a treasure left by the three ultimate immortals in the Kangli mountains. I understand, only holy war can we have an excuse to intervene in the southern territory. The old supreme sighed. After all, the Sanju Holy Land is the sect of Zhongzhou. If the sect enters the southern territory to gain more opportunities, it will inevitably be resisted by the southern territory. This breaks the rules. However, now the death of the two supremes has given them an excuse. Soon, an order was issued from the Sanju Holy Land. Gather the people of the Holy Land and start the holy war. Avenge the two supreme beings Shi Tai and Tai Ming. As soon as the news came out, the entire Sanju Holy Land was shaken. Holy war. Soon, the news of Zhongzhou's Sanju Holy Land's large-scale invasion of the southern territory caused shock. The southern region attracts attention. The news of the death of the two supreme beings and the madness of the other spread throughout the entire southern territory under the impetus of the Sanju Holy Land. After all, they needed the news of the murder of the two greats to spread in order to have a logical reason. All parties in the southern region were instantly shocked. Around the Kangli Mountains, someone actually took action against the supreme being of the three ultimate holy land, causing one death and one madness. It's really scary. Could it be that some quasi-immortal took action? The Kangli mountain range is really getting more and more complicated. Rumors were everywhere. And at this moment, outside the Kangli mountains, groups of people have already gathered. The leaders are Xiang Holy Land and Taiyan Holy Land. The two holy places took the lead and formed a coalition to explore the Kangli Mountains. Although the great changes in the Kangli mountain range caused a disaster, it was also a real great opportunity. Many of the taboo arrays were now destroyed. You can enter it. Report. A Mahayana master quickly approached, and he sent the latest news, saying, "The Sanju Holy Land in Zhongzhou has launched a holy war and is coming to the Kangli Mountains. It is said that the two supreme masters of the three Zhu Holy Land, Shi Tai and Tai Ming, were killed by the traitors Nanfan and Xiling, who colluded with an existence hidden outside the Kangli Mountains. They died and became mad. This triggered the three Zhu Holy Land. Of anger. The two supreme leaders of the coalition are none other than Luo Ming and Hongxian. The two of them were regarded as people with deep connections who were valued by Senior Li, so they became the leaders of the coalition forces. After hearing this, the two of them looked at each other at this moment, and they both saw the same solemnity and speculation in each other's eyes. Could it be Senior Li? Hongxian spoke. It must be so. Luo Ming said with certainty, the two so-called traitors in the Sanju Holy Land, Nanfan and Xiling, are probably the two who followed Senior Li. And looking at the entire southern territory, who can easily make the two supreme beings die and go crazy? Hongxian's face was extremely solemn. I really don't know if these two people have stepped into Senior Li's courtyard this time. Luo Ming couldn't help but think of the two supreme demon generals who died outside Senior Li's door last time. The burning demon soul exploded with immortal level power, unable to even step into the small courtyard. If the Sanju Holy Land knew about it, would they still dare to launch a holy war? I'm afraid I'll just turn around and run away. He suddenly said mockingly. 3 absolute holy lands think they are smart, and want to seize the opportunity of the Kangli mountain range with the help of the deaths of the 2 supreme beings. Unfortunately, launching a holy war against a being like Senior Li is really a mistake. Their little cleverness will bring disaster to their entire holy land. Hongxian said, should we come forward? The other party dares to be disrespectful to Senior Li. No need, all of this must be part of Senior Li's plan. Luo Mingdao, in the hands of Senior Li, the Holy Land is just a chess piece. We should be glad that Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land are at least useful chess pieces, and Sanju Holy Land, obviously, is about to become a discarded piece. Hongxian looked complicated. No matter what, let's march towards the Kangli Mountains. March on. The tidal wave of coalition forces immediately crossed the outer perimeter of the Kangli Mountains and poured in. And at this moment, Huo Ling, Mu Jianing, and others also entered the small mountain village. Before entering the Kangli Mountains, they came here specifically to listen to Senior Li's teachings. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 39. Wu Xianting, so domineering, so free and easy. The group stopped outside Li Fan's small courtyard and saw the plaque on the far door. Yu Qishui couldn't help but admire and said, just by looking at it, I felt an unimaginable momentum. If a sword cultivator comes here, I'm afraid he can understand the supreme swordsmanship from this calligraphy. Huo Linger and others also felt deeply extraordinary. Senior, Qianning and others have come to pay their respects to you. Mu Jianing spoke respectfully through the courtyard door. Come in. In the small courtyard, Li Fan's voice came. Everyone immediately pushed the door open and entered. Entering the small courtyard, I saw Li Fan lying leisurely under the peach tree, and beside him, Zi Ling was painting a mysterious egg with concentration, and Nanfeng was lightly plucking the strings of the piano with his bare hands. The little white tiger lay in Li Fan's arms, looking even more extraordinary. As expected of a true outsider, the outside world has been turned upside down, but Senior Li is still so calm and leisurely. Everyone was in a daze. There was really another world in this small courtyard. But thinking about it, a few people think it's normal. Is there anything else going on here that can affect the state of mind of people like Senior Li? Come and sit. Li Fan smiled and said, Huo Linger and others have become old friends after going back and forth. I don't know how their business is doing. How are you doing? He asked. Thanks to Senior for your concern, everything is fine. Yu Qishui spoke respectfully. Your coming here must be related to what Luo Ming and others are going to do, right? Last time, Li Fan gave Luo Ming and others a picture of dragon gathering in 10,000 mountains, and Luo Ming and others took it. Li Fan guessed that they would hold a calligraphy and painting exhibition or auction. At that time, Huo Linger and others asked if they could participate. Come now, the calligraphy and painting exhibition is probably about to start. When Huo Linger heard this, he nodded hastily. Senior, I wonder if you have any suggestions this time. Huo Linger spoke nervously. Li Fan smiled and said, it's nothing. Just keep your mind calm. Don't be too nervous. These things are nothing. He was also quite worried. Huo Linger probably just opened a small shop and had never seen much of the world, so he would be nervous. Hearing this, several people felt even more complicated. Even when it comes to the Kangli Mountains and Immortals, in Senior Li's opinion, it's nothing more than that. This is the vision of a peerless expert. But since you are here, I will give you 2 more things. Li Fan then spoke. Hearing this, Huo Linger and others were even more excited and delighted. With Senior Li giving me something, I really have no worries about this trip. He immediately stood up and waved to Zi Ling to prepare pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. Li Fan immediately picked up the pen and moved it like the wind. He finished it in one go, and the words fell instantly. One sword suppresses the whole world. Just these 5 words. Every word is like a sword, and the anger is like a bullfight. Huo Linger and others were deeply shocked when they saw it. These 4 words hide the terrifying atmosphere of the avenue. In addition, Li Fan immediately used his pen to paint an impromptu painting. What he painted is a scene of the sky. The sky is high and vast, white clouds are like stacks, and there are faint eaves fighting. A fairy palace, hidden in the clouds. This is the picture of below fairy palace. Li Fan dropped his brush. Huo Linger and others were in a trance. They seemed to have seen a real majestic fairy palace, which existed even more anciently among the white clouds. Zi Ling, on the other hand, fell directly into the realm of enlightenment. Li Fan smiled and gave all the calligraphy and painting to Huo Linger and others. Since Huo Linger and others are going to show it in front of the world this time, Li Fan will simply let the world see what real calligraphy is and what real painting is. And at this moment, fiery volcano. It used to be extremely powerful in the southern part of the Fire Nation, sweeping many moon and day levels of strength, but now it seems a little quiet. In a secret room. Yin Xiaokong, the owner of the Lihuo mountain, has been in the secret room for nearly half a month. No one dared to disturb. Yin Xiaokong knelt in front of the 8-armed, 2-headed statue of a strangely colored god. Previously, when the gods informed him that divine envoys had arrived and were about to wipe out all obstacles, Yin Xiaokong was overjoyed, thinking that the opportunity for Lihuashan to dominate the entire Fire Nation, and even the southern territory, had finally come. However, what followed was the silent death of the divine messenger. Even the gods fell into silence. This put Yin Xiaokong into a panic. What kind of existence is behind the Lihuo sect? In that small mountain village, even the messenger of the evil god can't shake it. He was simply afraid that the other party would just snap his fingers and destroy Lihuashan directly from the air. Therefore, only by hiding in front of the evil god's statue could he feel a sense of security. God, Kangli mountain range has been opened, why haven't you given any instructions yet? He muttered. Could it be that the existence in that small mountain village has become so terrifying that the gods dare not appear again? However, as soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, a hoarse and harsh voice came from the evil god statue. The time has come. Yin Xiaokong immediately raised his eyes and looked at the statue in disbelief. God, finally spoke again? God, you finally spoke. He was very excited. In the eyes of the evil god statue, 2 green lights suddenly appeared at this moment. The energy to become an immortal has appeared, I will also grant you great blessings. The evil god's sinister voice sounded. Yin Xiaokong was even more excited. Great blessing. This is great. God, what can I do for you? He asked tremblingly. The sinister voice sneered, dedicate your body to me. All ghosts suddenly floated out of the evil statues. No. At this moment, Yin Xiaokong felt great terror. However, it was too late, he had no ability to resist, and the ghost entered his body directly. After entering his body, the ghost swallowed up Yin Xiaokong's weak soul. Haha, the taste of soul is really delicious. Yin Xiaokong got up from the ground and turned his head, full of a strange feeling. He walked out of the secret room. Sect Master, what's wrong? Is there any response from God? Gong Sun Chi and other elders spoke one after another. Of course. Yin Xiaokong smiled sinisterly and waved his hand. Countless dark and terrifying ghosts suddenly flew out of his hands. The 8 elders of Lihuashan all fell to the ground in an instant, twitching and screaming. Not long after, the 8 elders stood up together, their eyes green. Greetings to God. The 8 elders knelt down together. Yin Xiaokong turned his head, looked in the direction of the Kangli Mountains, and said, ascending the immortal platform, the opportunity to become an immortal has come to me. He let out a low roar, and in an instant, he and the 8 elders disappeared from the volcano. In the southern region, there is a lake shrouded in cold air somewhere. The temperature is extremely low. The lake water is black, and the bottom of the lake is covered with huge ice cubes. This is a rare xianbing. In the center of a huge piece of black ice, there is a figure sitting cross-legged. That was a young man, a woman with white hair but a beautiful face. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. In an instant, the black ice exploded. The entire icy lake also suffered a terrifying impact and was lifted into the air. The next moment, the woman appeared above the lake. The opportunity to become an immortal has finally appeared. In this life, I will definitely become an immortal. She took one step forward and was already thousands of miles away. The coalition forces led by Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land have entered the depths of the Kangli Mountains. Roar. On the third day, the coalition forces encountered a threat. The demonic soul of an original ferocious beast actually remained to this day, and its power was almost undiminished. With one claw of the vicious beast, hundreds of cultivators were killed. In the end, Hongxian and Luoming teamed up to suppress it. The fourth day, a remaining magic circle killed nearly 1,000 people from the coalition forces. Day 5. When passing through an eye of the earth, the huge suction force caused hundreds of people to be sucked into it, including 3 Yazuns. On the 6th day, the coalition forces even encountered a quasi-immortal weapon that transformed into a spirit, and killed the 2 supreme beings from Taiyan Holy Land. Finally, the quasi-immortal weapon from Taiyan Holy Land was also taken out, and the situation was brought under control. Even though the Kangli mountain range has collapsed and many dangers no longer exist, the remaining parts are still thrilling. Finally, a brilliant light appeared in the sight of the coalition forces. In that colorful light, there is a long staircase. I don't know where it leads. That's the immortal platform. Are we about to arrive at the immortal platform? According to legend, the place where the Supreme Being becomes an immortal. How is this possible? We can actually reach a place that countless Supreme Beings cannot ask for. Do we have a chance to become immortals? Everyone was shocked. At this point, it can be said that the coalition forces have suffered heavy losses, but there are still about 5,000 people left. The place where even the Supreme Being had a narrow escape from death could actually allow so many people to arrive this time. Everyone felt a little dazed. Ahead. It's only 100 miles away from where the immortal platform is. In Taiyan Holy Land, the Holy Lord Spirit Super Supreme appeared in person, with an excited tone. Yes, through this area, you can reach the immortal platform. In the Purple Sun Holy Land, Yuan Yang Supreme also had a fiery look in his eyes. Now, they all showed up in person. Let's go through the area ahead and go to the immortal platform. The secrets about immortals will appear before our eyes. The 2 holy masters personally spoke. Then, they led a dozen supreme beings to enter first. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 40. Ling Chao Supreme and Yuan Yang Supreme, along with many Supremes from Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land, were the first to enter the area ahead. This area looks like a simple open space. Moreover, they did not feel anything unusual. The coalition forces followed closely behind them. Boom. However, when they just stepped into this area, the scene in front of them suddenly changed. I saw the roaring wind, like an endless wilderness. On this wilderness, there are endless graves. Broken monuments, low tombs. At the end of this area, the gorgeous fairy light looks like a road leading to the fairyland, forming a sharp contrast with this sad land. What's going on? Why do I feel that this area is filled with chaotic supreme aura, even mixed with some immortal aura? The face of Ling Chao Supreme changed greatly. A look of horror flashed across the eyes of Yuan Yang Supreme, and he said, could it be that that rumor is actually true? In front of the immortal platform, there is the Supreme Cemetery. All those left here are dead Supreme beings, and among them, there are even quasi-immortals. He spoke. The expressions of many Supreme beings suddenly changed. Supreme Cemetery. This is too scary. Following coalition forces cannot enter. It seems that only Supreme and above can enter this area. At this time, Luo Ming also spoke, and he looked back. Countless coalition forces were blocked. Only some Supreme beings from other forces came in. Let's go, we're already here, we can't give up halfway, look ahead. Ling Chao Supreme spoke with a look of determination on his face. Everyone nodded. Go forward. There is murderous intent. Suddenly, the face of a Supreme man changed drastically, an inexplicable aura enveloped him, and an inexplicable fairy light fell. He suddenly let out a scream, Dao Xin was being chopped off. No. But in an instant, the immortal light dissipated, but this Supreme being who was still very prosperous just now turned into a withered old man. There was no spiritual energy left in his body. The immortal tribulation light, even if there is any imperfection, it will be cut into dust by the immortal tribulation light. The Supreme One took a hard look at the remaining people, and the next moment, he suddenly shattered on the spot. It turned into a pile of dirt. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Immortal tribulation? This is too scary. Is this how the Supreme Cemetery came to be? The immortal tribulation light is a great test for the Supreme. Only if you can withstand the immortal blade can you ascend the immortal platform and enter the immortal realm. Otherwise, it will be empty after all. The Supreme Spirit Master spoke solemnly. For a time, many Supreme beings hesitated. The death of the Supreme One just now made them all cautious. That Supreme Being can be regarded as very famous, and he is said to be one of the Supreme Beings who is most likely to become an immortal, but he cannot resist for a moment. How many people are there who ask themselves, can they be stronger than him? Jaja. At this moment, a cold laughter suddenly sounded behind many Supreme Beings. This laughter made everyone's expressions change drastically, and they felt creepy. They turned around and saw that there was an extra 9 people in the lonely cemetery behind them. The first person is surprisingly Yin Xiaokong from Lihuashan. There was a strange smile on the corner of his mouth, and the faces of the 8 elders behind him were filled with black energy. Evil God. The expressions of Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuan Yang suddenly changed. They recognized the true identities of these 9 people. The terrifying aura of the evil God. All Supreme Beings feel as if they are facing a formidable enemy at this moment, so be on alert. A bunch of ignorant ants. The evil God Yin Xiaokong glanced at them coldly. Want to step into the path of immortality? Today, I will help you. By the way of your Supreme Being, I will draw out the countless immortal tribulation lights and clear the way for me. He shouted coldly in a low voice, and suddenly, 6 arms and a head sprouted from his body. 2 heads and 8 arms. Extremely weird. Now. Endless dark clouds suddenly appeared above the heads of Ling Chao Supreme and others. The dark clouds are pressing down and turning into grimaces. He wants to eat us. Don't even think about it. Even if he is an evil god, he must not be so presumptuous. Ling Chao Supreme and Yuan Yang Supreme are the 2 holy masters. At this moment, they sacrificed the quasi-immortal weapon without any hesitation. Taiyan Holy Plate. The Ling Chao Supreme shouted angrily, and a round of miraculous stone disc light erupted. Purple Yang Immortal Spear. In the hands of Yuan Yang Supreme is a blood-stained spear, which rushes towards the endless dark clouds with endless power. Let's take action together to defeat the evil god's attack. Luo Ming and others even roared angrily. Suddenly, dozens of Supremes took action together. Today, almost all the Supreme Beings in the southern region came and took action together, with shocking power. Even though the power of the evil god is close to that of an immortal, with the combined efforts of 2 quasi-immortal weapons and dozens of Supreme Beings, his magical power has almost been broken. But the evil god Yin Xiaokong just sneered. He suddenly waved his hand and the boundless clouds disappeared. Boom! In the Supreme Cemetery, countless celestial calamity lights suddenly erupted, slashing at the Supreme Ling Chao and others. Moreover, there are 2 terrifying 3-color fairy lights mixed in it. It was attracted by the power of the quasi-immortal weapon and aimed at the quasi-immortal's immortal calamity light. No, we are being used by the evil god. Force us to take action, draw out the immortal tribulation light, and destroy us. At the same time, he has the opportunity to set foot on the platform of immortality. The faces of many Supreme Beings changed greatly. Most of them did not have the strength and courage to face this immortal calamity. What's more, at this moment, there are 2 rays of light aimed at the quasi-immortal. Enjoy death. The evil god sneered, turned into a wisp of smoke, and floated towards the immortal platform. Many Supreme Beings are almost in despair at this moment. Everyone, please come into the palace. Suddenly, a loud shout suddenly sounded. The one who spoke was Huo Ling. She, Mu Jianing, and Yu Qishui also stepped into the Supreme Cemetery. Although their cultivation level has not reached the Supreme level, the Supreme Cemetery cannot stop them. Feeling the terror of the fairy light at this moment, Huo Ling did not hesitate and directly released the Lishan Divine Palace. The Grand Palace appeared in an instant. An ancient spirit appears. This palace is so scary. Let's go, quickly enter it. Maybe we can avoid this problem. Ling Chao Supreme, Yuan Yang Supreme, and others hurriedly entered the Lishan Palace. Everyone was shocked when they entered the Lishan Palace. What kind of palace is this? Why do I feel so small? It contains the laws of immortality, and even the laws of fire attribute are everywhere. Is this a real immortal weapon? Everyone was shocked. At this moment, all the immortal tribulation lights that filled the sky were striking the Lishan Palace. Many Supreme Beings have closed their eyes, not daring to look at the next scene. However, the big impact that everyone imagined did not come, and the countless immortal tribulation lights disappeared directly the moment they approached the Lishan Palace. Just like snowflakes, they dissipate the moment they get close to the red stove. Not a single ripple. In an instant, many Supreme Beings were dumbfounded. What kind of treasure is this shrine? Even the calamity light that can kill the quasi-immortal can't help but touch this palace. How terrible! Is it the residence of gods?